Gamescom 2013. I'm happy to be joined by Team Immunity's Elysia, who is the jungler. Now just coming off of a rough match versus Pain Gaming, and you were up 2-0 in the tournament before that. So just before the match, they were kind of considered the favorites. Did you also have that impression?
Yes, Brazil's scene in particular is probably the strongest in the tournament, and the level of competition over in Brazil is better than any other region in my opinion, so we always knew they were going to be a really tough opponent.
So then going into the game, picks and bans from your side out, a Swain pick, which is kind of a risky pick and something that really has to work, and then they banned out, they took your Zyra, and they banned out Zach as well, who you like to roll with. So what were your thoughts on the picks and bans?
Picks and bans actually went quite well for us. I felt the only real mistake that we made was picking the Swain over, say, Orianna, Ahri, anything with real pressure at mid. Swain's fine if he gets a early advantage. So, you know, if we invaded at level 1, blew the mid's flash, something like that, Swain would have been really good. Because that didn't happen, Swain just got outfarmed by Orianna, and then just from there, the lanes were all naturally pushed. So it's really hard for me as a jungler to go to each lane if all lanes are getting pushed in. So that was the biggest issue.
And then as the game scaled further, of course, the Caitlyn was becoming so big. Did you feel like there's nothing I can do anymore now to get in those? I can't lock her up, I can't...
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the issue was that because of the early kill at mid, when Vi killed me, that was really bad of me. And ever since then, Vi was always ahead of me. So anytime I tried to go bot, Vi was always ready because they had a huge presence at bot, so they always had control over Dragon. We could never get wards past Dragon. So because of that, Vi just had free reign on wherever she wanted to go. So yeah, like I said, it was mostly the Vi. We couldn't stop the Vi in the 3v3. Sona was getting blown up instantly. So yeah.
So about that Vi pick, it's something that we've seen in the European LCS a lot recently, but not anywhere else actually. Is that someone you would pick up as well, or do you not think she's that viable?
I think she's okay in certain team comps and situations. I feel Pain picked Vi particularly against us because they know that our AD carry is really good. I think our AD is probably the best on the team, or our bot lane. So I think Vi was, look, we're picking this because we want to shut down your bot lane. And that's exactly what they did.
Let me go a little bit deeper in that. You say that you think your bot lane is the best. We saw, of course, with the game earlier that you ran with a Annie support. Is that something, where have you picked that up? Because people have been saying they can take their influences from both Korea and North America. Is that drawn from there, or more your own, you really like to run with it?
It's more Korea. We first saw Annie support in Korea, and we were like, oh wow, that's actually really good against squishy support champions. And yeah, I mean, we saw the Sona pick against Lion Gaming, and we were like, all right, let's just go Annie. And it worked out really well for us.
It worked out really well, and it was Heavens who was on Syndra in that game, and coming into this, Heavens was someone that we were told to look out for because he plays a lot of stuff. He has the deepest champion pool and runs with a lot of different things and different builds. Is that something you have to keep in check sometimes, like now with the Swain pick?
Yeah, you know, he gets a lot of funky ideas with a lot of champions, and some of the time we don't want him to play things, but he has his heart set on it. So sometimes, you know, there's a little bit of debate with it in the team when it comes to the mid pick. But so far this tournament, I'm still happy, yeah.
So, of course, you have a loss now. You already have 2 wins. Nothing is lost, not at all. So what are your thoughts in going into the rest of the games and the teams you still have to face?
So the only team we have to the only team left faces, I think, Gaming Gear. We watched the game versus Pain, and we watched the game versus DP as well, Dark Passage. We think we can beat them. They're not anything special. I think Pain are better than them. So I think 50-50 going into that. So
do you think that Pain will be the team to beat for you guys coming into tomorrow maybe?
Pain? Yeah, I think Pain's going to be the team to beat this tournament. I'll be honest, obviously we'd love as an upset, but I'll be very surprised if Pain doesn't win.
Right. So you've been saying that you think they're very strong, and Pain has also been scrimming against a lot of the LCS teams, and I've heard you saying that you've been scrimming against Copenhagen Wolf. So Lion told me, the Lion team, well, we haven't been able to research anyone else. Is that where you think you get your edge, that you have done a lot more preparation than some of the other teams, and how did you do that?
Yeah, I think all the different teams had different levels of preparation. I think when teams looked at our VODs, they didn't get much out of them because we stomped our regionals. and what we're picking and banning now has no reflection on what we were picking and banning then. And a lot of practice with Copenhagen Wolves has really helped us. So yeah, I think they're starting to see trends of what we're doing. But I think we're still good contenders, I think.
You seem to have a very clear vision of the regions and who is strong and which teams, and I think that's maybe because of your time zone that you can watch a lot of stuff. So what do you think of the competition on world level now, and where do you situate the Oceanic region in that?
I'd say we're probably second or third best region here. I think all the players here individually are really good. It's just a matter of preparation. And I mean, Lion Gaming have straight out said, we haven't prepared for this, we haven't watched VODs. They're all good, really good individually, but if you don't prepare, then you're not going to do well at the tournament. So, yeah.
And can you tell me something, what it would mean for you, for your team, and for your entire region to get a spot at Worlds?
It would mean the world to us.
Very nice. So if you were to be able to get that spot, you got, of course, already these other regions, do you think you could beat a lot of the teams there because you have that edge of that preparation and looking at all those scenes?
I honestly think we do okay. I wouldn't expect like a top 3 or a top 4 finish, obviously. I mean, the Korean and Chinese teams are absolute monsters. Maybe against some of the NA and European teams, we might do okay, and some of the Southeast Asia. But I think at Worlds, it's going to be Korea and China domination.
No love for Europe and NA?
No.
That is clear. So how are you enjoying the event so far and playing in front of this crowd and on this stage?
It's amazing. Playing at PAX in Australia was our first, live audience event, and to play in front of this audience in Gamescom is amazing. The event itself is the biggest I've ever seen. It's absolutely massive, and it's just it's an amazing experience.
Tell me maybe a little bit more about you. You get the chance now to talk to that many people that are watching that might not know the team, and it's been on Reddit as well that you've been hyped, and look at this team, they're really good. How long have you been playing together, and where did it all come from?
So the core members of the team, we've been together since December 2011, and we actually haven't lost a tournament in our region since that time. So we've been dominant in the Oceanic region for a very long time.
Well, you've been dominating here too, Ellen. 2 games, just 1 loss. Good luck in the rest of the tournament. All right, now it's time for our 4th set of matches. Demon and Jad will be calling the Dark Passage versus Pain Gaming match over on the 2nd stream, while Kobe and Quickshot will be bringing you the play-by-play for the Gaming Gear and Lion match on the A stream. Take it away, guys.
Thank you very much, Shocks. And like she said, we pulled a caster lane swap here at Gamescom. My name is Trevor Quickshot Henry, and I am joined by Sam, Kobe, Hartman, Kensler. Dude, Gamescom.
I am really enjoying Germany so far. I mean, I only know 1 German word, which is Schmetterling, and I'm still getting around fine because so many people speak English.
I get a funny feeling you've been trolled just a little bit with that one. But Gamescom
I know what it means.
Yeah, Gamescom's awesome. Gamescom's it's a really cool event. The venue is massive. I haven't even had a chance to walk around. There's like 9 halls, and just this hall takes like 5 minutes to walk across.
And this is only the press day, so tomorrow it's going to be even more packed. Not sure if people can even move around.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to be rolling through all the tournaments, Challenger, as well as wrapping up the wildcard tomorrow and the next day, and then finally the LCS playoffs as we get further. Yeah,
the wildcard has started off so exciting. Everybody is bringing a lot of different comps just from game to game. So if you haven't done your research coming in, then you're really in trouble. Yeah, we're getting closer to the next match that we're about to start off, which is going to be Gaming Gear taking on Lion Gaming. And I just want to refresh everybody's memory of where they stand. So first of all, Gaming Gear are currently sitting 1-1. They lost to Pain Gaming, who are sitting at the top of the table right now, and they did manage to defeat Dark Passage. Over on the other side, Lion Gaming unfortunately lost to both Dark Passage and Immunity, and they're not looking very so hot. So theoretically, since Gaming Gear EU already beat Dark Passage, and Lion lost the Dark Passage, the game should be in Gaming Gear EU's favor. It is the common denominator. We'll have to see how that plays off. It is, of course, time for the 4th match of the day. As we've been talking about, Gaming Gear versus Lion. And for the Latin American team, they've got beaten up by Dark Passage in their last match and now are sitting at an 0-2 record. Lion got off to a great start in that game. Their mid laner, Uri, had 8 kills in the first 18 minutes, but Dark Passage split pushed and outfought Lion in the late game to take the match. Now, of course, Lion's opponents in this match are going to be Gaming Gear. They come into the showdown knowing that they can move into the top 2
if the wildcard standings remain, if they pick up another win.
So they took down Dark Passage in their first game behind a great Baron steal from their mid laner. That was just the Gragas combo at the perfect time. You know, he didn't even have vision. It was just the Ezreal that came through, and then he magically got the combo off perfectly. Very nice move right there. But unfortunately, they weren't able to duplicate that magic, and they got stomped by immunity in their next game.
Yeah, in terms of that particular game, it was quite an interesting one to watch because Lion, they didn't quite fit all together. I'm double checking the loss. It probably was the loss to Pain. And it was a close match because Pain Gaming, who of course the Brazilian squad, they only had a few thousand gold lead over Gaming Gear. And they kept trying to split push with Twisted Fate, and it just didn't work. Like, Gaming Gear held it all together and sat and prevented them pushing their base, basically.
Yeah, they held together very strong, and it says a lot because some of these teams actually came early to practice against EU LCS teams, and Pain is one of those. They've been here for like a week, and they've already been scrimming a lot of the other EU LCS teams, so they've put in a lot of practice just being here already and already being acclimated to the area. Yeah,
in terms of like the Gaming Gear EU guys, they were playing a lot of the Copenhagen Wolves, and it actually seems as though the Wolves were playing a lot of these international teams, which is great for the Wolves in terms of experience coming into their challenger teams. And you can see that we were taking a look at some of the player shots. So we'll pull up the lineups once more and remind everybody of exactly who is in each of these teams in just a moment. And of course, on the blue side for this particular game, it is going to be Gaming Gear EU. Up in the top lane, it is NBS, Alina in the jungle. Mazarine is their mid laner with Deadly Brother and Inspiro as your AD carry and support.
And on the red side, it's Lion Gaming. Up top is Porky. Hacker V2 is in the jungle. Uri is mid. Sia is AD carry. And Ner'Zhul is supporting.
Now we'll have to see what Lion Gaming can do in this particular matchup. Being 0-2 down, only having 2 games left.
Yeah.
If they lose the next one, I think they're probably out.
The only team that doesn't move on is the last place team. And Lion have unfortunately put themselves in last place so far. So one more loss will be devastating.
The thing that's heartbreaking for the Mexican team, for the South American squad, is they went undefeated in like 1 million tournaments in their qualifiers. I mean, I think they were was it 15-0 if I remember correctly?
Yeah, they looked really strong coming here because they, out of all of the qualifying regions, their region had the most games they had to get through to get here. And they won every single game. They didn't drop one map.
It gets even better than that as well because, yeah, they're not doing so hot in the international scene, but in their local scene, I remember looking at some of the squads and it was basically like every single country versus each other. And if I remember correctly, I think it was Latin America North versus Latin America South as the 2 finalists, but I'm stressing my brain a little bit. This is a bit mission overload.
And there's another thing about Lion Gaming. They have a lot of players that people that watch North American streamers will actually recognize because Hacker V2, he's been jungling on the North American server since season 1, and he's very high rated. He's in a lot of these professional gamers from North American servers streams. Very popular players like Voidboy and stuff. You may have seen, either Hacker or Sia.
So they're popular players. I have to wonder about some of the decision makings that the team has made because at the start of the day, they opened with a double AD composition. This is Lion Gaming we're talking about. It didn't really work out. And then in the second game they played, they stole all of Dark Passage's champs, like that they'd been playing. They picked 4 of the champions that Dark Passage has already played today, and then didn't really gel. It almost seemed as though they got a bit ahead of themselves.
Yeah, so when a team does that and they steal away the picks that they've seen their opponents use earlier in the day, it's kind of a tell that they didn't do that much research before coming here, and they're trying to make up for it right now. So just looking at the most immediate previous game, they tried to take away all the comfort champions, and it didn't work out either.
Yeah, it's something that did backfire, but we'll see what they can do in this particular matchup because their opponents are going to be the Lithuanians. Gaming Gear EU, they are representing CIS, even though technically Lithuania's not in the CIS, but we'll skip over that.
Don't bring up that sore subject.
We'll skip over that. Gaming Gear EU in their regional qualifier had like 1 million kills. Now, I had the pleasure of casting it alongside D-Man and Joe and Jason. And, in the semifinals and the grand finals, they were averaging between 1.5 and 2 kills per minute. It was extremely chaotic. It was all over the place. They haven't been able to replicate that high amount of kills yet, but they seem to be putting up a fair fight. I mean, they really made Pain work very, very hard, and they were able to actually take down Dark Passage.
Yeah, they do look good in the individual play and getting kills, and that's always a very good skill to have, but the focus on objectives doesn't seem to quite be there. They were able to get through that first game and win it because of a Baron steal, but you don't want to put yourself into the position where you have to pull off a Gragas combo to steal the Baron.
This is something we've actually talked about with regards to the team back in Moscow. We were talking to the Russian shoutcasters. They were mentioning it to us. Gaming Gear, they went to DreamHack. They didn't do very well. They didn't make it out the groups. And it seems as though the later the game goes, the less of an ability the team has to actually make an impact. And it's like you're saying, they don't seem to be able to convert those 1 or 2 picks into towers, dragons, barons, things like that.
Yeah, you always got to keep the objective that you're going to get after your kill in mind. And a lot of that has to do with not taking too much damage during the exchange, so you don't have to recall at very bad times, because that will open up the opportunity for those response barons that people will take only having an Oracles, without even getting a kill on you. If they can do enough damage to make you recall, then they'll make you pay for it.
Let's take a little bit of a closer look at Gaming Gear. You were about a couple minutes away from jumping into Champ Select. I want to talk about Mazarine in particular. He's played Gragas and Orianna. I've highlighted Gragas twice because there was a remake, and he technically picked it through both of the things. Gragas is a bit of a fringe pick elsewhere. We see him not as frequently as Mazarine's playing him, though.
So he's got a very strong burst combo, as you can see from the Baron steal, but his ulti is what really defines Gragas, and it can be used both as a defensive ult or as an offensive ult. A lot of teams used to pick Gragas as a counter to heavy area of effect champions mid like Karthus or Kennen, because you can ult them away from your team, and it spreads out the rest of your enemies. So you can either use it to start off a fight in an isolation team composition, where you have something like Ahri to follow back up, and she can chase down whoever gets ulted into a bad spot. Or you can use it in those defensive team comps where you're up against Karthus or Kennen.
I wonder if Lion are going to find that champion to be ban-worthy, because they've run sort of a couple of super heavy team fight comps in the previous game, and then a double AD one before, and Gragas could cause headaches for both of them. So
yeah, that's a good point. And since it looks like they're doing a lot of their research sort of just from the games that are being played here, Gragas would be a pretty easy pick because he's already been used sort of twice.
Yeah, it's something we've kind of jumped on a little bit. While Deadly Brother was being interviewed earlier, he mentioned we haven't really been able to research. And you can sort of see what he was saying in that when you look at the games that a lot of these teams played in their promotional tournaments to get here, and the champions they're actually playing on stage, they are vastly different, because in each of the respective regions and countries, these teams are basically the bee's knees. They're dominating everybody. So they're playing different champions when they got to go full try hard.
Yeah. And another problem with that Lions first game, the double AD comp that they ran was into a hard engage composition that was already put together. And you don't want to do that. When you have a double AD composition, the biggest thing that's going to counter you are those hard engage comps that are coming and get right through your front line and lock down both of your AD carries. So I don't know if their planning coming into this has been that solid, because there's definitely times when you want to use those certain team compositions, and it seems like they haven't really been able to figure it out yet.
Yeah, haven't found the right time to pull the trigger on that one. And against a team like pick Zach, and during nothing crazy.
Yeah, so talking about, not showing your hand, those are also very versatile picks here. But to go with the Zac, they've picked Jarvan and Orianna. Orianna now has 2 options to get a good shockwave off. Most important part with her are those delivery systems that everyone talks about for the balls, and those are very good frontline options because Jarvan can just single target, jump on anyone he wants, and then the shockwave will suck them back into that cataclysm. So you can keep them sucked for even longer.
One thing we'll have to see how Gaming Gear wrap up their composition is what AD carry they're going to put in there, because you've got a fair amount of burst damage that from Orianna that can come down, but the rest of it is a little bit more sustained damage over time, whereas Renekton and Ahri a little bit more effective at getting damage down in a shorter space of time.
Yeah, with the last 2 picks that they just locked in, they're looking for control. They aren't looking for one huge source of damage. They just have so much control over the battlefield right now. Adding Sona and Ashe is very similar to adding an Ashe Zyra lane, except for the fact that Sona can also be used a bit more offensively with the flash crescendos. So if they want a team fight, they will get a team fight. An Ashe arrow into a Zac or Jarvan follow-up initiation with a shockwave is a very potent combo. So Lion right here, it's very good that they have their comfort picks, which are the Nautilus for Hacker V2 and the Ahri for the mid laner. Those are 2 very comfortable picks that they have used a lot, and they can actually use those to pick people out. So they're going to be looking much more to split and deal with GG sort of in different areas of the map instead of coming up to those 5 vs 5
outside of the depth charge from Lion, their sort of engagement is very much based on landing a charm or a hook or...
So yeah, they got 2 hooks there.
And that's really the only way they can pull it. What's it? Hook City, if I recall correctly, is what Elements coined that one as. But I mean, the onus is going to be on Gaming Gear to control the tempo of fights. And I imagine if they do get burst out, it's going to be that sort of favorable 5v4, 4v3, whatever situation that Lion are going to be looking for.
Yeah, so Lion are going to be looking to get sort of the early start with their Caitlyn lane, putting immediate pressure onto turrets, and then by keeping the rest of Gaming Gear spread out, they're going to try and take advantage of that Ahri and Nautilus potential to pick people off in the side lanes. To do that, their ward control is going to have to be up there in their priorities. They're going to have to get either an early oracles or spread out a lot of wards of their own so that they can then see where Gaming Gear place their wards.
We'll have to keep very close eyes on the early games of this particular one. Lion in particular, they came up against a heavy crowd control initiation combination earlier today when they played against Immunity, and unfortunately they came off the losing side of that matchup, but you learn more from losses than you do from victories, so we'll see how well they can handle this high utility, high crowd control composition that Gaming Gear has put together.
Yeah, it seems like, they're going to have, we might even see Ahri split pushing here in the late game because she is such a great duelist, and they really don't want to have to deal with all of that crowd control in an enclosed area. So the more they can spread it out, better for Lion.
Well, we are about to jump into the game right now. It is, of course, Gaming Gear taking on Lion Gaming. That's Lithuania versus Mexico here in Cologne, Germany. Both of these teams desperate for a win, but Lion significantly more hungry, as another loss could actually put them out of the tournament altogether. Right now, fairly defensive starts. We haven't seen too much crazy level 1 action. There has been a fair amount of Zyra in these games. That'll dissuade you from any sort of pushes. Right now, Lion moving towards the river.
Yeah, with the amount of times that Jats talked about level 1 invades against the Zyra, I think he's had some fairly bad experiences walking into a bush and getting those grasping roots on him.
As an Udio player, I imagine it's particularly more frustrating. Right now, the 5-man Lion, they're pushing forward. They get themselves a fairly deep ward on the backside of that red buff of Gaming Gear EU. That's obviously just going to let them know exactly as and when Alina is moving through the jungle. Once he's picked up his red buff, and he starts looking to set up some ganks.
Now, with the early wards too, if you can get them deep enough, then you can also choose your lane matchups. Both teams right now seem to be just favoring the old natural start. Here we'll have the AD carry and support bottom. And in 310, that's a little bit more important because the early dragons are a bit easier to take with the fact that the turrets up top are harder to answer with.
Yeah, it's something that we definitely noticed during the course of Super Week in Europe at the very least, that the average first dragon timer dropped significantly lower. We were seeing teams challenge between like 8 and 11 minutes, where it used to be like 10 to 14 minutes. But we haven't seen too many early dragons here in the wildcard tournament just yet.
So there's also an interesting stat with that. Since the 3.10 patch in the LCS, the games have actually only been about 30 seconds longer than before the patch, but the first turrets are taken 2 minutes and 30 seconds later. So it does have an effect on the early game, but it hasn't made the entire length of the game all that much different.
No significant change. What we are seeing is the straight up head-to-head matches, as we've been talking about. Fairly slow passive starts from these teams. And the one thing that has impressed me about a number of the wildcard teams is their actual mechanical ability. We've been seeing some great CS numbers across the board.
Yeah, so the landing phase is very easy for most of these wildcard players. But once we do start having the ganks come in, which we'll probably see here because both junglers started on the bottom side of the map, and both of them are aware that there are no wards up in that top lane. So they've been told, and they're actually pinging out the wards already by both of their mid laners here.
So we'll have to see how well this works out. It does turn out that both Hacker V2 and Alinea are hanging out in the mid lane. Uri and Mazarin are about to have a lot of trouble. They come in, the knockup lands Hacker. Red buff is down. Mazarin's looking to get some DPS, but Onua is charmed backwards and manages to use that dredge line to pull himself to safety. Hacker gets out cleanly. A little bit of trade early on.
Beautiful counter gank right there. They don't get much of a win for it, just a slight damage trade advantage. But it really does go to show that as a jungler, the amount of information you have to keep track of, wow, they're just going to keep on fighting here, break down a couple shields.
And remember, that shield is so important for Hacker's damage. The moment that it pops, that on hit is just going to be removed. And Alinea, he's hanging around. He's not afraid of Nautilus. The early levels, I guess, Jarvan's a slightly better jeweler.
He has effectively asserted his jungle dominance, and now he's going to be taking away the big race here from Hacker, which will slow him a tiny bit, but not anything significant.
So the one thing that we are definitely seeing is, you know, the camera's picked it up a couple times, is that this Ashe Sona lane is actually applying a little bit more auto attacks, a little bit more damage onto the Sia Ner'zhul lane.
And they do have very good early poke, but a flash hook lands.
And they pull Deadly Brother back. He's forced to flash away. The Death Sentence misses, but Barrier's not going to be enough to save him just yet. The damage over time tick goes up. Actually going to Ner'zhul's Ignite, getting the last tick of damage. And first blood on the board for Lion Gaming.
Love it when you see those Nautilus not hesitate to go with the risky flash hook and land it. He was rewarded with the risk that he took. Very good job by the rest of the team following up as well with the Thresh burning both the flash and Ignite, even though he missed the death sentence. First blood, well deserved.
Not over yet. You can see Alinea moving to the top lane. He's got that blue buff. He can knock up lands. Borky could be in a little bit of trouble. He ghosts up and he's running at 1 mile a minute, but here comes NBS. The knockup does land, followed up by Jarvan. Unfortunately not throwing him into the air. 270 HP is what needs to get burned through. Slices through the wall and gets out cleanly. Alinea decides not to flash for that one.
He thought about doing it, but was not aware of the enemy jungler's position, so good call not to waste his flash and go for after that one.
But they did manage to get the ghost out of Borky, so at the end of the day, advantage Gaming Gear EU in terms of that gank, but they do need to make up a little bit of ground. Alinea is going to find Hacker V2, starts smacking him in the head as Hacker is too busy shopping and realizes he needs to get rid of that before he can run away.
It was a good check though, because with that, without that ghost that you're talking about, Renekton much more vulnerable to a repeat gank. And it's very, very common practice after you burn the summoner with your first round to just make a circle as a jungler and return to the same lane so that you can actually come out with a kill.
That window of opportunity is going to be slightly less than if Borky was running Flash, but for the time being, is at a little bit of risk as we are getting towards those level 6 stages of the game. So the potential for mid laners to get burst kills and top laners to actually start setting up fights is getting a little closer and a little more possible.
Yeah, the trade-off between Flash and Ghost is always one that, especially top laners and junglers, debate for a long time. It's very nice to have your summoner come back with a lower cooldown, that 210 for Ghost rather than 300 for Flash, but you do lack in the end game those surprise initiations. And Renekton without a flash means that he will have to rely on getting his slice renewed into a dice by going through minions or through a tank to try and get to the back line. Because Ghost is it doesn't have that surprise factor.
Positioning for Porky going to be very, very key as this match goes later into the game. We're talking about the early game phase and how Lion really wanted to and needed to get themselves into an advantageous position. And as it stands, the numbers are close as far as CS is concerned. But a Hacker V2 flash hook was enough to secure Lion Gaming the first bloods. Mazarine takes a charm to the face, and Yuri actually uses the Spirit Rush there to try and get a bit of extra poke down.
That's actually very nice for Orion. Ari, without the Spirit Rush, has greatly reduced threat. That means that not only will she not have to worry about the kill in the mid lane, but bottom lane doesn't have to worry about a roaming Ari. 99% of the time, or Ari without Spirit Rush isn't going to roam down bottom for a kill.
So we'll have to see how long it takes before Uri decides to roam, if at all. His bottom lane is definitely going in favor of Lion Gaming since that first bud was secured, and Zia as well as Ner'Zhul are putting so much damage down into Deadly Brother. If a fight were to break out, Deadly Brother's at a big disadvantage thanks to that massive health deficit between himself and Sia.
Having a Sona there to heal you up is always extremely nice though, and with both ADs running barrier, they can also effectively tower bait both of these champions. So they're gonna come in with this red, so very nice timing here by GG.
Yeah, and you actually noticed in the minimap that both NBS and Mazarine had left their respective lanes to, you know, cover that invade and set up the steal. So a little bit of map control and timing control here from Gaming Gear. Put themselves a little bit ahead of Lion, but a very, very slow start to this matchup. CS numbers a little lower than what we have seen, but we do see
another gank from Hacker here coming in behind.
Coming in from behind, Hook manages to catch Inspiro. Hacker tries to pull in Deadly Brothers. They turn their focus down onto Sona, forced to flash away. No crescendo available. Ace in the hole goes through. Not going to be enough. Inspiro does manage to get away with his life.
Ooh, so Hacker initially went for Ashe and trying to get the immobilize from his first auto attack onto both champions. With that little bit of extra damage, might have been put to better use on Sona there and been able to finish her off. Needless to say though, they got the flash out of Sona and she is indeed extremely squishy at this moment.
Yeah, a little bit of greed maybe, thinking that Sia and Ner'Zhul had enough damage to close off the kill on Inspiro, but nevertheless, once again, Summoner Spell down, and we've seen Hacker V2 not hesitate on those flash hooks before, so we might see him down. The one thing is going to be a little more difficult now that both Deadly Brother and Inspiro have their Enchanted Crystal Arrows and their Crescendos available. So continuing to chase through all of that insanely hard CC is going to be significantly more difficult for Lion Gaming.
Yeah, we just saw there, Crystal Arrow, not only is it a good engage, but can be used to save the life of your support and disengage.
We do see that Lion Gaming have got a very, very small 200 gold lead. We've seen a little bit more, I think we've seen more presence from Hacker V2 than we have from Alinea. The ganks from this Nautilus have been a lot more impactful. They've got more summoner spells, and barring one gank in the top lane by Alinea, he's really been sticking to that jungle, but he hasn't got a noticeable CS advantage.
He is drawing a little bit behind on the ganks, and most of it is because of the bottom lane presence. As we see that though, they're trying to remedy the situation with pink wards. It's just a little bit mistimed here as bottom lane is recalling. And they even ping back Nautilus because they suspect that there is a counter gank in the area.
We'll have to see if this works out for Lion Gaming. They're sort of aware of it. They've got the information to work with, and it looks like they're currently baiting Gaming Gear. The on-hit snare is going to hold Alinea in place. Dredgeline pulls him backwards for a second, and we do see Java go back in. Cataclysm comes down the crescendo, locks up Sia. Caitlyn is so low, 50 HP, still alive. A flash forward from Deadly Brother plus one more auto attack. It's going to be enough damage for Java to close out the kill. Now that Uri has joined the party, Spirit Rush is available. We talked about how he does not roam without his ultimate. A fight is happening on two fronts, and Deadly Brother is being focused down by by Uri. He manages to secure a kill, while in the background, Mazarine's going to close out the kill onto Deadly Brother. Now the mid laners trading 1 for 1 in this bottom lane, but they're on opposite sides. They've traded position on the map. Alina is super low. If he gets caught by an Orb of Deception, there's a possibility for more kills. Mazarine looks like he stopped the CS as he continues to auto-attack down. Uri managing to secure the kill. Advantage Gaming Gear EU.
Lion bit off a little bit more than they could chew in that one. They set up that counter gank we were talking about, waiting for Jarvan, and they decided to try and focus him, but they're focusing the Jarvan, whereas GG are focusing the Caitlyn here. And the AD carry going to go down much quicker. Great Shona crescendo right there to follow that one up. And they are actually able to even get Jarvan out alive because of the flash. Basically, the entire difference here in this counter gank was one team focusing the jungle tank and the other team focusing AD carry.
And Sia was completely stun locked up there. Crystal Arrow into Crescendo. I think he got off one Piltover Peacemaker before finally being forced down. And now all of a sudden, Gaming Gear EU, they turn the game in their favor, picking up about 3 kills back to back, as well as only losing 1. 2 of those kills landed in Oriana's lap as well. So Mazarine at the moment, he's got a CS advantage, he's got a Haunting Guys completed, and he's really going to be scary.
Yeah, so that was the difference between running one of these control-heavy duo lanes as opposed to the attack damage-heavy ones. Yes, Caitlyn does have the slight CS advantage, but when you want to set up a gank in the bottom lane, Gaming Gear are going to have the huge advantage there. As we saw, the chaining CCs, Crystal Arrow into a Flash Crescendo, extremely powerful.
We'll have to see if they can continue to keep up that trend as we are hitting 12 and a half, 13 minutes on the clock. Dragon has not even been looked at by either of these teams, and you have to feel that in the not too distant future, surely somebody's going to start thinking about it. Lion have got some good vision, and we'll have to see what they decide.
Well, it's going to depend a lot on how these fights down bottom turn out. If one team comes out significantly ahead, then we'll see it. Another arrow into Flash Crescendo.
That's a 3-man knocker from Alini as he joins the party. Cataclysm slam dunks here into a pancake on the floor. Deadly Brother is finally going to go down. Now it's support and jungler versus support and jungler. But it looks like Gaming Gear EU come out in an advantageous here. 2 kills for 1, but it looked fairly close.
It was, again, just locking the Caitlyn up. She has no cleanse, so there's no answer for a almost point-blank arrow there, you know, about half the screen. Pretty easy to land the very close-range arrows, and that's all that you need to be able to set up the Flash Crescendos. So they can easily change that one up, and they take out the Caitlyn first. I was just about to talk about the Dragon, though. They're going to need more than a 2-for-1 for either of these teams to actually have the confidence to tank the Dragon at this stage in the game, and that wasn't quite enough for Gaming Gear to actually decide to go for it.
A clean fight with multiple kills is basically the modus operandi for either of these teams if they want to get towards that Dragon. One thing is that as far as damage is concerned, Sia has a big advantage, a BF sword as well as that Cloak of Agility already completed. Whereas on the other side, Ash is sitting just that pickaxe in his back pocket. It's quite interesting to see how both of these teams are so heavily focused on shutting down their opponent's AD carry. You see Porky is about to run into a little bit of trouble from Alenia. Knockup does come in, red buff slow is there. You see the stretching strike from MBS slowing him down further. Dominus gets thrown out.
He Ghost, so he should be okay here.
He does manage to ghost away. The least exciting gank I think we've seen in a long time.
They were able to finally get the Ghost out of him, though. He was holding onto it, seeing if he would be able to escape without having to burn that cooldown. And by actually making him pop that, they open up the opportunity for a repeat gank here.
And it does look like the repeat is in place. A flash into Let's Bounce. Now Porky has no ultimate, no ghost available. Down to 350 HP. Knockup's going to close it out. Alenia goes 3-0-3. Lion thinking about a Dragon.
Again, that's the circle that I just talked about, where most junglers will put very immediate repeat ganks on the exact same area. Ash Arrow used defensively this time.
Deadly Brother gets hooked in, he's pulled backwards. A brilliant flay coming out of Nerzul, throws Inspiro and Deadly Brother into the path of damage. Barrier comes out, and that's going to be enough to keep Deadly Brother alive for the time being. Ace in the hole gets body blocked by Inspiro.
No summoners left for this duo lane down bottom on Gaming Gear now. That was a very successful gank. But the fact that they don't have their Renekton up top means they are going to lose out on a lot of turret damage in the top lane while they go for the dragon.
So Lion Gaming, they finally managed to set up that, superior gank in that team fight. Even though it didn't result in kills, it does allow them to pick up the dragon. Zach actually backed off from that top lane.
Yeah, so even though this was the least successful gank down bottom, they didn't get any kills. They were able to burn the summoners and force the duo lane out, and since they just saw Jarvan top getting that kill on Porky, they knew that there was no way Jarvan was going to come in for that smite steal, so very good map awareness here from Lion, and they're able to capitalize on it not only with the dragon, but also the bottom turret.
So it's something that's going to at least balance out the gold values for Lion Gaming, as they were about 2,500, 3,000 gold behind before the dragon and before that tower has been secured. But with the first two global objectives in their back pocket, they're definitely going to be feeling a little bit more confident. However, Porky finds himself between a flubbery spot, a Jarvan and an Orianna. We'll see whether he's going to slice and dice on the wall, but he's been cut off. This is a trifecta here from Gaming Gear EU. The slice went through, the dice follows. Knockup comes down from LNG, the knockup from NBS, not managing to land, but this has quickly turned into a massive fight. Let's Bounce goes down. Nautilus is the first target. He manages to flash away to safety. Alina forced to escape. Hex Drinker spell shield was popped. That kept him alive. The Ash Arrow lands onto Uri. He's going to get knocked up and just deleted from the mid lane.
They spent so much time setting up that triangle to try and collapse onto Porky. I thought that it was going to be all for naught, but they're able to capitalize on that because Nautilus decides to go in with very low health as well. That was a nice shockwave on both of those targets, and only one of them was able to get out. The Ash Arrow from down bottom was just icing on the cake right there. Very nice shot from Deadly Brother.
Incredibly cold icing on the cake, one might say. We do see Gaming Gear EU, they even up the towers 1-to-1. They extend that gold lead back to 2,500 as it was a couple minutes ago. And it just feels like if Gaming Gear EU feel like they can pick up fights and pick up kills, they're able to do it a little bit more effectively than that of Lion Gaming right now.
Well, because that dragon was taken off the table by Lion utilizing the timing of the Jarvan gank top, and they're forcing the duo lane of Gaming Gear out bottom, that objective that Gaming Gear could use to force this giant AoE team fight that they're looking for is going to be delayed another 6 minutes, and it's actually opened up a window here for Lion to take advantage of the spread out nature of the map.
Well, we'll have to see how these teams respond and if they want to, really press the advantage and move down the lanes, because as it stands, it does look like the lanes are still sticking for the most part where they have been all game. Nerzil has got a tiny cameo in this mid lane, and it does look like Sia is also going to be moving down. So Lion maybe signaling their intentions. The mid tower might be the next point of call, the next focus for the Mexicans.
Yeah, and the mid tower for Lion is the one that's extremely low here. We do have Hacker getting caught out in the river once again, but there's so many members from Lion here to answer. It's actually...
And Mazarine just gets popped.
Yeah, it's actually Orianna that's in trouble. Another arrow does hit, but nobody's in the air to capitalize.
Yeah, a little bit late on that arrow from Deadly Brother. Threw it out maybe as the fight started, but Gaming Gear a little too spread, and all of a sudden Lion Gaming with the numbers advantage jump on the mid tower.
And that was all brought about by the great warding of Lion.
Crescendo locks up every single member of Lion Gaming, but it's a 3 versus 5 at best. Finally, Deadly Brothers joined the party. First kill secured in favor of Sia and Lion Gaming. They pick up a second on the board to close the kill gap. Now NBS is way behind enemy lines. He's taking on 4 members of Lion Gaming as Deadly Brothers spamming out the volley from the backside.
Thresh, be careful!
Self-vision. Now we see Thresh gets taken down by the volley and auto attacks as they turn their focus to Deadly Brother. Pop the final blobule, whatever you want to call him, and a great fight for Lion Gaming.
So all members of Lion were extremely low right there. Somebody was going to have to go down to Ashe to be able to sacrifice themselves to get those 2 extra kills. And it happened to be Thresh, just walking right into auto attack range. Now, if we look at the beginning, remember, this is already after Orianna's dead. So it's a 4-on-5 engage from Gaming Gear. And though it was a nice crescendo, it wasn't enough because they didn't have their mid lane power here. And Lion were able to even take a few tower hits during this. Now let's watch again. Who's going to be the focus of Ashe here? Because either Renekton or Thresh could go down, but Thresh is actually on the front lines. It only takes 1 auto attack to take him out. Very noble sacrifice, though, as it nets them 2 kills in response.
Yeah, exactly what Lion Gaming needed to get themselves back into this matchup. They're falling a little bit further behind in gold, but the one thing is they didn't get the tower.
And let's go back to the thing that started all of that was the Orianna walking into the river to try and catch Hacker. They thought they were going to pull off another one of those pincer ganks, but because of the amazing early warding of Lion that we talked about in Champion Select, they were actually able to not only pull off a pick, but a very good trap there that was able to bait in Gaming Gear, which basically ended in a very delayed ace.
What you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is all of those wards littered across the map for Lion Gaming, trying to emulate a Christmas tree, as it were. There's so much vision down as Alenia, he once again wants to come and play with Porky. Now, Porky's been able to get away from most of the ganks. See if he can do it this time around. Dominus once again. Ghost is not available as he gets knocked into the air by Jarvan, and Zach gets locked in with a Cataclysm. There's a lot of HP and magic resistance to get through, and Porky is able to just slice and dice away.
That Spirit Visage is such a popular top lane item, and you can see right there, because it adds exactly every stat that most of these top laners are looking for. When he's going up against a magic damage champion like Zac, then the magic resistance is perfect for his laning phase, and he actually heals a lot from his Q and his empowered Q during laning phase as well, so the extra 20% helps there. And the cooldown reduction, amazing on everybody.
Crescendo manages to lock up Ari, but it's not going to be enough to save his life. In the background, Sia comes in, lands the auto attack, and a pult over to pick up yet another kill. With the support down from Gaming Gear EU, the timing and the vision, Lion are going to be able to pick up this dragon.
So it's Lion that are trying to go for another dragon here, and they're able to get it. But Gaming Gear did not hesitate to move everyone top. So they're trying to answer that with a turret take of their own.
And it doesn't look like Lion are going to let this one stand. And they've got a three-man stack in the mid lane. They're going to try and push the mid tower down, and they should be able to pick it up. We do see some members of Gaming Gear recalling as Sia and Uri continue the pressure.
This is actually really good mid-game calling by Lion right here. They're even able to stop the recall of Ori, delaying one more member here. It's buying Caitlyn a lot of alone time with this turret.
Now there is an Ash Arrow available. You can see that NBS is sitting in the river, but he's about to get caught up by all the hooks. Manages to get a short little hop over the wall and gets to safety.
So that was a dragon and 2 turrets for Lion, and just 1 turret in response here for Gaming Gear. So an extremely well played aftermath of the kill right there for Lion. It looks like their mid-game decision-making has gotten a lot better very quickly.
Interestingly, a lot of these picks and a lot of these fights and objectives that we're seeing contested have all stemmed from river-based battles and that very mid lane. Now with all of those outer towers down, with the exception of the top tower for Gaming Gear EU, the map is even more open and more prone to movement, invades, and skirmishes.
And with Ari just finishing her Deathfire Grasp, she's going to have a really good time in an open map right here. There's only 1 outer turret left, and that's the top one here for Gaming Gear. So she has a lot more area to roam around and look for that 100% burst on anybody that really isn't Jarvan or Zac.
We'll have to see how well Porky can impact these team fights in addition to that burst damage of Uri, because he's just finished himself off that Ravenous Hydra. He's already got a fairly good amount of area of effect damage with his ultimate and his abilities. And now he's just adding splash damage to his auto attacks. Inspro's been caught once again. The charm doesn't manage to land. Inspro gets the flash to safety, but we do see Alenia joins the party. NBS comes in. The arrow whips going through every single member of Lion Gaming. Crescendo still available as the shockwave pulls 2 members of Lion together. This is a brilliant fight for Gaming Gear EU. They've secured 3 kills already. A double kill for Mazarine. A flash away from NBS to safety. The last auto attack and tick of Ignite gives a triple kill to Mazarine. And they didn't even use Crescendo.
That's the danger of fighting in these enclosed areas against this control squad that Gaming Gear have picked off. It was Ner'Zhul overextending a little bit, trying to engage right there with half health. Yes, he's landed a very good hook onto Sona, but it put him in a compromising situation, and they were able to take him out almost before that even started.
In terms of the crowd control, the arrow and the Crescendo didn't even land on the used respectively. Gaming Gear, they're going to secure themselves a Baron. They've got a 3,000 gold lead and a nice power position.
Yeah, they didn't even have to use the Crescendo here because of this shockwave that comes out. There's already the half-life thresh that we talked about. Zac goes in perfectly. There's the ball delivery system. Nice shockwave on 2 of them. And Nautilus is not able to tank up the 3 members of Gaming Gear. whereas Oriana was able to burst down Lion.
And there was just no pressure on Deadly Brother at all. He stood in the back line, auto-attacking at will. He never let Hacker V2 get close to him, and Corky simply, he couldn't make it through the front line of Gaming Gear. So well played by GG in that particular engagement. They now have this, all of the regen and statistics of Baron buff to allow them to potentially push down lanes. But this is where Gaming Gear have faltered in all of the games we've spectated. As we break the 25 and the 30-minute mark, their mid-game decision-making not quite as on point as what we've seen from Lion Gaming.
So they're going to have to supplement that with more vision. As long as they can see where Lion are, then they should be able to avoid those pick attempts and be able to use the Baron buff that they have to just push down one lane. And this crowd control that they are bringing makes tower dives actually extremely easy for them, because they can arrow you under turret and follow that up with the crescendo, and having Zac tank a turret is a very is the optimal situation here as well.
Especially with the immense amount of armor that MBS has already built up. Sunfire Cape, as well as that Warden's Mail already completed. We see a heavy stack of games.
Oh, Shirelian!
We do see Ashes down in the bottom lane though. Now MBS is charged up. He's bounced in. Shockwave is available. The ball is on MBS and it works! 2 misses. Shockwave goes wide, as well as the arrow, and Gaming Gear immediately peel away, saying, nope, don't want none of that.
The thing is, even with burning both of those, they still have crescendo and Let's Bounce. So they may not want to go 100% for that tower dive, but since Lion are a little bit out of position here, there's a 4-on-5, they actually are getting a lot of damage here.
NBS just took so much damage from the root from Nautilus, a stun from Renekton, as well as some tower hits. But at the end of the day, Gaming Gear pick up their 5th tower of the game and extend that gold lead a little further.
Definitely making good use of this Baron buff here, and since the cooldown on Oriana's ult is so low with her blue buff plus Athene's Unholy Grail, that's actually going to be back up for the next team fight, so they won't even be missing that one.
You see NBS once again positioning himself to the sideline gap. He's charging up the slingshot, he's thrown himself in. Shockwave is going to be available and manages to just pull CIN, and he is melted under the damage of Gaming Gear. They managed to pick up 2 quick back-to-back kills for Alenio, and it's not over yet. They've disregarded the inner turret to dive onto the inhibitor. It's still not finished as a knockup lands. It's a V2. Now the and Alenio is going past the Nexus turrets. You cannot get deeper than that. The knockup comes into place. The Death Star laser not managing to pick up the kill on Alenio, but that is 4 kills uncontested for Gaming Gear EU. They're now onto the inhibitor turret.
You can see how confident Gaming Gear EU are diving all the way into the Nexus turret, and with good reason here. They're able to get an inhibitor off the back of that, and they still have their Baron buff. There's not a lot of answer for Lion because they don't have the front or midline defensive potential to peel for Sia. He doesn't get to do anything here. This Caitlyn's not putting out as much damage as this Ashe because Caitlyn doesn't get a chance to do anything here. You can see the Zac into the Shockwave Oriana combo right there means she didn't even get to fire a single shot. Whereas Ashe is on the back line, she's even tanking turrets and she's fine with it.
Basically everybody on Lion Gaming was saying, see ya, we wouldn't want to be ya.
Good one.
In terms of Gaming Gear EU, they finally pick up their first dragon of the game after 29 minutes. They simply haven't really contested for it, nor have they had the vision for it, to be very, very fair. But the one thing I did like about that fight, there was no hesitation. The minion line conquered up to the tower, and NBS just instantly went in. They didn't wait a moment.
It was a pretty good slingshot there to start things off. If we can have Zac initiate like that every time, then there's almost no option here for Lion. And that's why I talked about the tower dive being such a good option for Gaming Gear. They have so many answers and so much control in that sort of confined area that there's not much for Lion to do except retreat into their base. And we saw them retreat as far as they could, past 4 sets of turrets into the fountain laser, and it still wasn't enough.
Gaming Gear right now have got themselves an 8,000 gold lead, and it's a position that they have had during the course of the games they've played today already. However, it has taken them a fairly long period of time in order to put together these wins. Against Dark Passage in particular, it was way closer than I think they would have been comfortable for. And you know, all the questions we had about their mid game, they seem to have found an answer. Just commit, like just jump in.
Everyone keeps talking about the lack of quality decision making for Gaming Gear in the late game, but with early game like this, it doesn't really matter. As long as they can tower dive, and as long as they have Zach in that much control, then it makes their decision very, very easy, and they can just play aggressively, which is obviously how they're comfortable playing, and the play style that they would much rather go to.
And it is much closer to those kills per minute we were talking about from the Russian qualifier. 30 minutes into the game, we got 27 kills on the board. You can see that super minions in the mid lane, and Sia looking to deal with those ones. MBS once again. We do see MBS completely zoning out every single be respawning. Anything to him, and right here are a little bit split up.
Hackers back up, and they are able to chase Gaming Gear off the inhibitor temporarily. This has got to be Lion's time to go right here.
Ash Arrow is not available just yet. Hacker was forced backwards, was forced a little bit further away. This is a jungle job, and Lulu's Ghostblade, keep that in mind. The Architect goes down, he's rooted in place, the Death Sentence falls it backwards, the Cataclysm goes down, Alinger flashes out of it. Now the inhibitor still standing as they turn the focus to Mazarin. A Crescendo locks them up, and that's a three-man shockwave. Pulls everybody together, but Sia is untouched in the background. Deadly Brothers trying to get onto him, they're trading auto attacks, and as it stands, 80 carry and 80 carry is still alive. The only victim of the fight was Porky.
Nobody down for Gaming Gear, plus they got the inhibitor. That is a terrible sign for Lion because they were baroned up and that was their opportunity. They even got Jarvan down to half before the rest of Gaming Gear were able to turn around and output damage of their own, but it just wasn't enough. There are multiple initiations here for Gaming Gear. Even if they're delayed on the first arrow and crescendo, they still have the shockwave and less bounce, which are two amazing combos that they've been able to space out and control team fights for more than like 15 to 20 seconds.
The communication in terms of stacking those abilities has been very, very good for Gaming Gear EU. And I want to talk to you about something that we've seen Mazarin doing again. He's picked himself up another Liandry's Torment on his Orianna. And I can sort of see that making sense considering how low your command attack works, but it's not a traditional Orianna item.
It's not on Orianna, but I do always enjoy having a Leandri on some person in the late game because the percentage burn from max health is so effective in the late game. And since Orianna has area of effect spells, she is able to apply it to multiple people at the beginning of the fight because it's so easy for her to deliver her shockwaves and other spells with the Zac and Jarvan diving in, that it's some great early fight damage that she gets.
And we'll have to see how effectively Mazrin can make that stick, because right now, Super Minions in the top and the middle, there's a very, very big wave in the top lane. Keep your eyes on that. Hacker B2 manages to catch NBS, and that's definitely not the person they wanted. Walker loses 50% of his HP. He gets knocked into the air. Deadly Brother lands a long auto attack. Even with the death sentence landing on out, it's not enough for Lion Gaming. They've lost 2 members this fight. Cataclysm goes down, instantly cancelled. Alan is not interested in the wall. Knocks up Hacker B2. Down on the left-hand side, Mazrin and Deadly Brother close out the kill into Sia. 4 kills without reply. They get the inhibitor turret, they get the inhibitor, and Gaming Gear are looking to close the game.
Congratulations to Gaming Gear, a very, very strong performance here. They've definitely got some of the other teams in the wild card. Yes.
At this point in time, they managed to pick up their second victory of the tournament so far. Gaming Gear sitting 2-1. The Mexicans of Lion Gaming, unfortunately, 0-3. They only have one more chance to pick up a victory on the stream with us actually against Pain Gaming. That's a tough loss.
Yeah, Pain has been looking very, very strong so far. And to drop.
Congratulations once again to the Lithuanians of Gaming Gear EU. They are representing CIS. Of course, they did sweep that tournament in Moscow. 2-0 in the semis, 2-0 in the grand finals. And this game was a little bit more what we have been seeing from Gaming Gear EU. A bit more action-packed, not afraid to dive, not afraid to pick fights.
I feel like you don't give them Zac because that's how they got their first win, and they went right back to the first pick Zac. It was a huge part of their combination to set up the other forms of CC that they were bringing to the table.
It was also responsible for their loss. When Zac was taken away from them, they lost the game. You heard Deadly Brother talking about it, and you can see how this very aggressive team likes to tower dive, likes to be in your face, and maybe they could do it with Malphite if Zac's taken away.
That's the other thing there. When you don't have the confidence in your late game decision making, having a Zac or a Malphite on your team makes it that much easier because you have the option to tower dive. Zac is such a great option for tanking those turrets. It just complements their playstyle very well.
Well, congratulations to Gaming Gear EU. They managed to pick themselves up a victory. We are going to be heading over to Stream B with D-Man and Jat for the conclusion of the match between Dark Passage and Pain Gaming as we get set up on Stream A. So, D-Man, Jat, take it away.
Good to see that Pain Gaming are starting to be stopped in their tracks by Dark Passage here. Welcome to Stream A as well. If you have just joined us, well, you can see that Pain Gaming, they have a dominant position, but it's not over yet. And look at Fabulous. Now we're starting to see how Nasus does against a split push in Shen. Q is going to start doing work, and Venom's going to have to get away from this one. He's got no escape, though. Narun, why are you not coming down the bottom? Why are you not joining this party? He should be able to chase it, but instead they're pushing the top lane.
Yeah, it's because the rest of Pain knows that as Venom is struggling against Nasus, they can go for a push. They can force Nasus off here, and then Venom can escape with the Standard United to make something happen. This is a great call by Pain.
Villion having to sidestep against T. T doing some serious work in this game on that Mumu. Those bandage dodges have been causing problems. They took half the hit points down, and look at this. Actually, Venom's just got away. They're letting Fabulous just continue pushing. He's just gone up to get some health, and he's going to push up with the rest of his team. Remember that middle lane is Super Minions pushing through.
Yeah, and at this point, it is dive time for Pain. The dive went wrong for them last time, but that turret does not have much health left, and they just gonna go.
It's a great crescendo because the Sand Mummy quickly counters it. They get a shadow dash on Levillion. Levillion gonna get locked up. He's got no protection here. He's trying desperately to run away from that one. He gets locked down. Riota goes down. Pain Gaming are just making their way through Dark Passage, and they are surely gonna close out and maybe pick up a 3-0 lead in this group. Can they close out? Naru desperately trying to get in there with a force pull, but hasn't got the damage to stop Pain Gaming.
And that fight was just greatly timed by Pain. Fabulous, you can't be that far from home 35 minutes in when Shen can just tower dive your team, which is already behind. Great execution, and I don't know if they can actually end this one because, man, Fabulous is putting up pretty fabulous fight.
He's putting up as much of defense as he can here, and BRTT forced away from that one. They have taken down the second inhibitor turret of the game, though. Dark Passage. Oh, the chance to that Bad is in all the trouble. I'm not sure he's got enough to defend off these two. They are damage dealers, and BRTT gets the 90 caliber net and a basic attack to finish it off. That will be Fabulous down for a minute.
7-1 now for Caitlyn. This is another one of those games for BRTT where he's just picking up the right kills for Caitlyn. He's going for that pretty much full damage build with no attack speed. As soon as he gets a Zeal or a Static Shiv or a Phantom Dancer, his damage is just going to multiply like crazy. Now that he has that Static Shiv, it's even more trouble for Dark Passage.
And looking at, like you say, that Static Shift being picked up, it's identical build from the last game, and it seems to work so well for him. Cami as well, doing a fantastic job. Sati, though, we can't underestimate how vitally he was at the start of this game.
Oh, yeah.
6-2-12 so far on Amumu. Amumu with jungle we've not seen for a real long time, really used by anyone, in fact. I'm trying to think of the last time an Amumu was used in the LCS. In
Saintfish has played it in NA during Super Week, but that was the first we'd seen out of it in forever.
So maybe it's the return of the mummy.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Maybe it is, we'll see.
There's something there.
There's something there, there is something there. So let's have a look. The bottom lane, that's going to be where Main Gaming look to try and push on through. They've taken the top and the middle inhibitor. Oh, we did see actually Naru going aggressive on towards Venom, but not really doing a great deal of damage. Charles being thrown out by Cami. He's trying to land it on towards Fabulous. Almost certainly got to be the focus now because we've seen how much damage he can lay out. He's hitting for, I think it's close to 900 now actually with that Q, so if he gets towards BRTT, it will be trouble, which is why Holyfall's desperately trying to get them flash crescendos in.
Yeah, that Q of Nasus is at plus 537, but at this time, Holyfall is he's leaning too much with his crescendos. He has to surprise people with them. They can tell when he's looking for it. They've already picked him off twice while he was trying to find a good crescendo, and you just gotta wait for it, especially since they know Pain is in a situation where they're going to go all in for that turret at some point.
We have more patience needed. That bullet time is not landing once again because the Sad Mommy TT goes very deep there. Riosta manages to get a kill straight away. He goes down. There's going to be the bullet time. Is it enough? Not going to turn it around. The Root does manage to get a kill on towards Cami though. They're going to keep chasing it down. There's going to be the damage. Sati's going to get dropped down. Ace of the Hole's going to come through. Not going to do a great deal. It's the Root that gets caught out there. That's got a great aggro prism. The Root's going to have to use the Sonya's hourglass. Is he going to be able to get away from this one? Rift walks away on towards Bennett. Holyfall now gets focused. Shadow Dash comes in. BRT joins the fight. He is just going to rip Dark Passage to part. Going to get straight through. There's going to be the build over Peacemaker. They're actually going for the inhibitor turret. I don't know why, because they have both Nexuses available.
Well, they won that fight by a lot, and BRTT really bided his time in that one. He was way back, making sure he was alive because they knew they had control of it near the end of it. They're going to do the clean sweep of the inhibitors here, D-Man, because they are in control.
That's going to be one inhibitor down. There's the second. The top one already dropped, so all three now down. So double super minions will be spawning, and Pain Gaming taking the time on this one. They're going to back away. Why not? Why not?
No
they
rush.
have full control. They're top of the league now, it seems.
25 kills to 8. They just had a very resounding teamfight win. It looked a little close and scary in the middle. That's because the 7-1 Caitlyn was off looking in a bush for some reason. He should have been staying in the fight and just crushing people, but he was a little bit scared of Naru finishing off on casting because he was around half health. Nothing's going to be stopping BRTT at this juncture in the game, I don't think. Even Cami, who died early on in that fight, didn't get off his full combo, yet Pain Gaming was able to take the win. They already have 3 inhibitors down. They're taking the Baron just for good measure. There's going to be double super minion waves spawning in all the lanes. Pain's gonna lose.
Well, of course, their final match will be against Lion Gaming, so we'll see how that works out for them. And meanwhile, Immunity versus Gaming Gear will follow this one as well. So honestly, Pain Gaming have looked so good today.
They were the favorites coming in.
They were the favorites, and seemingly rightly so, but you also got to look at their records alongside LCS teams. Hasn't fared that well. You could put it down to jet lag when they arrived, but I guess when you also look at it, they're probably the most prepared team. The fact that they have their own gaming house, they arrived in Europe on Monday. They've been here an entire week before they even came into this match.
The preparation often breeds success for everything in life, but specifically with this team, knowing that they're going into an international tournament that actually feeds into another international tournament, obviously, if they're able to qualify. It means they have to go in for this. Having the gaming house and the 1 week of prep allows them to not only get over the jet lag, but also just have preparation against some of the top teams. And then you always want to practice against someone better than you if you're looking to improve at this point. And I feel like they're humble enough to know that they're the new guys on the block and they need to practice against the LCS teams so they can win a tournament fight.
Just two working wonders. There is the Super Minion stacking in there. It seems only a matter of time before Pain Gaming can clinch just one off a game. Fabulous having going at it against Vedon down the bottom lane there. But it is all over to Crescendo, going to land the bullet time left. It doesn't. It's the best combo they can pull out, but it's not going to be enough because counter the Sand Mommy comes out there. BRTT taken very low, which is live stealing it back. Naru might be able to get straight on towards him with the ripple. Tries it. Doesn't happen. 90 caliber net from BRTT. Gets himself the triple kill. The Nexus is going to be exposed, and this will be quadruple. Having the pentakill, BRTT! Oh, and the pentakill on the fountain! The counter-strike throw, proving he can land those headshots when it counts. It is Pain Gaming victorious. They are 3-0 and top of the league.
That's got to feel pretty good right at the end. Not only do they get the 3-0, securing their spot really in tomorrow, most likely going for the #1 seed. Pentakill on this kind of stage has got to feel amazing for you.
Yeah, you got to be happy with that. Despite the game was effectively over by then, it still matters.
A pentakill.
It still counts, even though the team completely gave it to him.
Oh, the team definitely wanted to give it to him. That's why they're diving the Nexus there. They didn't take any deaths for it.
But it ended up 15-1-5 because of that. That's not bad. I mean, we just went, what, 8-1, 8-1-6 or something like that in the last game as well.
So it'd be 23-2 in the last 2 games on KDA.
KDA has got to be pretty damn impressive right now. He didn't die, actually, if I remember, in the first game either.
Wow.
I'd have to double check that one. Yeah, we'll have to check that one. Either way, he's definitely doing a fantastic job. BRTT there as the AD carry. He is on your screens and has been playing fantastically well. So Pain Gaming, they've only got Lion ahead of them, and Lion themselves are 0-3. So you've got to wonder, can Pain Gaming go 4-0 in the group stage?
I would definitely predict that if I had to call this one, because they've been so dominant in their last 2 games. They had a dominant start in their game against Gaming Gear without the dominant ending. And they do seem to just kind of be ramping up in comfort right now. Sure, it takes them a little bit longer to end the games, but at least they're ending them in style.
Ending them in style. So do we see anyone stopping? Do we see, say, Immunity turning it around? If they were to get through to the semifinals, finals against each other, how do you see it over a best of 3? Because they seem to be the only one so far that's actually caused a slight problem for Pain.
I think they still have to take it day by day here. So much is going to change between one day to the next, knowing that these teams haven't had too much to scout off of. And Immunity, we're talking to those guys, are very smart about the game. I definitely peg Immunity as their #1 threat, and they need to go into tomorrow mainly prepping for them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic game. And already Pain Gaming looking like they are potentially one little toe in towards that final. There's a long way to go yet, though. It is time for us to take another short break, though. So go grab a bratwurst at the food court.
You're in Germany.
My German, well, you know, good. Sauerkraut, whatever you'd like in there, schnitzel, you could get anything. But don't worry, we'll be right back. Shocks and Dark Passage's AD carry Lithilion will be telling us of his torrid time against BRTT there. And then, of course, it is time for our final 2 matches of the wildcard group stage. It's going to be Lion Gaming taking on Pain Gaming plus Gaming Gear. They're going to be up against the Aussies Team Immunity. So don't go anywhere, because our live coverage from Gamescom 2013 will be right back.